Hear me out, boo bop, okay? Fear is an illusion. Okay? Fear is an illusion. Whatever it is that you will not do because you are afraid of the thing that is happening, you are sitting in the illusion, not in the truth. Your every thought is not fact. Okay? And what I feel for you is you are so certain that something is going to go down a certain way that you have painted this belief in yourself that if you were to take a step outside of your comfort zone, you would lose everything. The worst of the worst would take place. And that fear is paralyzing you. It is not allowing you to take the step, the risk, the move that you need to make and take and do. And so therefore, you find yourself in the same cycle of trying, pushing, things looking like it's going to go up. And then you end up in the same space because at every level you travel, every level you get to, it is going to almost guarantee and bet that you are going to face something you're afraid of. And until you master the part of you that understands that fear is an illusion, it is a story you are telling yourself, and you have more powers over your fear, you're going to find yourself repeating the same cycle where you get to a place where you face that fear and decide, nah, I'm going to head out. I'm going to just go left. Face this fear for what? Do this thing for what? Other than the fact that I want to live my best life. And every time I manifest my best life, I get hit with something that's asking me to face a fear that I don't know. I don't want to do it. And fear can very much seem like it's non-existent in your life, but I promise you're masking it with something. You're masking it with a belief. You're masking it with this strong, headstrong, like, oh no, it's supposed to be like this, or oh my goodness, I can't do that. You're telling yourself a story. I feel so strongly for you that you are on the brink of something so incredibly important, so incredibly necessary, and you're allowing your fears to stop you from making one of the most important, most amazing moves that you could possibly make. I don't want that for you. So you now need to get to a place where you tell yourself, okay, it's time to get so incredibly honest with myself. I see where I want to go. I see where I am. There is a gap in between those two things. How do I get myself from where I am to where I want to be? And what about that journey and that process am I not willing to do? Honesty, authenticity is going to take you so much further than sitting there and lying to yourself, saying that it's just impossible, or telling yourself that you don't have a certain resource and that's why it's not happening. When you do that to yourself, that is when the phrase life is happening to me exists. Because the reason why you feel it's happening to you is because you're allowing life to dictate how you're going to live. When in reality, it is the way you live that dictates life. So when you're sitting here convincing yourself that you can't do something because you don't have enough money, enough support, enough of whatever it is you think or have convinced yourself you don't have, you are sitting in victimhood. You are sitting in the idea that you are stuck, that you are locked, that you can't, that you won't, and it is only fear standing in your way. Because the truth is, the way to get what it is that you want, that resource, that goal, whatever it is asking you to risk something. Take a risk in some area. That risk could look like tell your truth and tell your story. That risk could look like ask for help. That risk could look like go in a direction that terrifies you. That risk could look like listen to some advice that seems absolutely batshit but speaks to your soul. That risk could look like investing your last 1,000 in that self-care so that you can rejuvenate your mind, body, and soul and get to the next level. You are afraid of taking a risk, which means you are afraid of stepping out of your comfort zone. A zone that you will tell yourself you are fighting so incredibly hard to get out of. Because it's easy to tell ourselves that story. But if you are in the same position, then that means you're not fighting as hard as you think you are. You are probably doing enough to show that you're fighting, but you're not going in the direction. You're not doing that one thing that you need to do. And it's probably most likely because you are afraid. I have found the biggest changes that I made in my life had to do with one decision, not a bunch of decisions. Had to do with one risk, not a bunch of work. Every time that I've made the most money, every time that I hit the next level, every time that I got out of something difficult, it was one decision to take one risk that I wasn't willing to take beforehand that got me to that level. It was that one moment to face my fear that got me to that next level, that got me out of that hardship, that got me to where it is that I need to go. And that's what's being asked of you. Your fear is just an illusion. You're not actually afraid of the thing. You tell yourself you're afraid of public speaking, for example. You're not afraid of public speaking. You're afraid of the judgment that others may make. You're afraid of what may happen on the stage. You have painted a picture, an illusion of what could go wrong. That is the fear you're sitting in, and that doesn't exist. That is not true. It is simply the story you are telling yourself. And since you're sitting in the story you're telling yourself, well, you're holding yourself back from what is true, which is you have the power. You most likely have the skill. You definitely have the ability. But you are so certain that the illusion you have painted is the only truth. And since you have painted that illusion for yourself, you are holding back. You tell yourself that you can't invest in that thing that you know would change your life because you have convinced yourself that you will have no money left. You don't know, but you've convinced yourself of that. That is an illusion and a story you're telling yourself that you simply convinced yourself of. You tell yourself that you can't do something because the last time you did it, it didn't go well. So this time you know it won't go well. That is not true. Unless it's an intuitive nudge that sits within you. It is not true. It is just your fear. And the beautiful thing about the intuition doesn't ask. The intuition doesn't plead. The intuition doesn't push. It is just a strong declaration of truth. And that's it. Your intuition's not going to repeat again and again so consistently trying to convince you. Your fears will. Let me say that one more time. Your intuition will not convince you, but your fears will. Your ego is consistently convincing you, consistently using proof of the past, proof of other people's lives, looking for signs to prove that your fear or your illusion or the story you told yourself is true. Your intuition doesn't do that. Your intuition, your highest energy, your greatest, truest self, doesn't look for proof. It doesn't try to convince. It simply says it. And it's not suggesting. It just says, you need to do this. And it's calm. And maybe it says it again. You need to do this. And it's calm. It notices the synchronicities without looking for it. It notices, damn, I've seen 222 5 times today. That's interesting. And it's such a subconscious thing. It's not looking at every license plate to see if you see an angel number. It's not looking for signs on YouTube to see if something's going to give you the advice. That's your ego looking for some sort of proof. Your intuition will tell you, and it will sit, and it is calm, and it knows everything is perfectly fine. And that's how you can tell the difference. Your fears are keeping you from going the distance, and your fears have been grown, and they only exist in your illusion, in the story you tell yourself, which means you actually have way more power over your fears than you're giving yourself credit for. And there is the need to realize that if you have the powers to give your fears all of this energy, then you have the power to overcome that fear by saying, I'm still going to move in the direction I know I need to move in intuitively anyway. despite the fear. Because the truth is, everything you're thinking can happen. But that's a possibility of many possibilities. And you're simply choosing to look at the negative ones. And since you're choosing to look at the negative ones, your life will absolutely reflect that negative shit happens. That's what they mean when they say, you manifest your reality. You call in what you're calling in. What you are focused on is the thing you're going to experience the most. So when you're telling yourself these stories and you're sitting in the fears of them, boo bop, sugar pie, honey bun, that's a you thing. And if you are causing the problem, then that means you're the solution. But the first thing you got to do is admit that that's what you're doing in the first place. That you are sitting in the illusion no matter how much proof is around you. And if you're watching this video and you're like, nah, but Brie, I really do have proof. I want you to know your need to prove, defend, or explain yourself is your ego. Your intuition will simply quietly tell you, yep, that's for you. Or no, that's not your message. Period. You won't need to defend it. You won't need to prove it. You won't need to say shit. You will simply just sit in the, oh, okay. That's definitely for somebody. Cool. Or, you know what? That hit. That's something right there. But the moment you need to defend, you're sitting in your ego. So try that out. Understand when your fears show up and when your intuition's talking, because your intuition's trying to get you to do something that's going to change your life. But your fears, that ego, baby, it's present. It's present in all of us. Doesn't make us bad. Doesn't mean we're horrible. It just means that it exists. And when we know that, we have greater power over the decisions and the moves that we make. So what's up, boo bop, sugar pie, honey bun? You ready to make some life-changing moves that move you in the direction you want to be in? Or are you going to sit and still blame life for not giving you what you want when you have the power to get it all?